Story number 1. White, glowing eyes. The following is a very true experience. I've never actually wrote this down before, and I don't know if anyone has experienced this too. This happened between 1989 and 1990 when I was 4 years old. To this day, I still get chills thinking about it, and I wonder if in some way unknown it changed me. My parents had a house in the Inland Empire of Southern California, and at the time my brother hadn't been born yet, so I was still the only child. To give you a layout, my parents' house was a 2-story house located in a cul-de-sac. On the bottom floor there was 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, the living room, and the kitchen. The second floor was just the master bedroom and bath. All you could see from the street was the garage and one of the bedroom windows on the bottom floor and the window of my mom's bathroom on the second floor. Now, for some reason, my blinds weren't completely down to the bottom of the window. There was about a 6-inch gap with nothing covering it. I was pretty young, so I didn't really care much about it then. The bed was in the middle of the wall, across from my bedroom door, and to the left was the window. According to my mom, this all happened right before midnight. My mother was asleep in her room upstairs, and my dad was a policeman that worked nights in another city. I was fast asleep in my room, and out of nowhere I suddenly awoke, looking up at the ceiling. I don't know what woke me, or if I just popped awake on my own. After my eyes adjusted to the nightlight of my bedroom, I sat up and started looking around my room. All of a sudden something caught my eye at the window, in the gap. First I thought it was the street light reflecting on the window. But I knew for a fact that there was only one street light, and what I was looking at was 2 obvious glowing spots that were spaced apart, as if on someone's face. Then I thought, is that a cat looking at me? And yes, I vividly remember thinking these things, trying to debunk this at 4 years old. I had remembered then that my cat Chelsea's eyes would reflect at night, but this looked different than that. The cat's eyes would almost have different colors when reflecting. These were 2 very solid, bright white glowing eyes, looking straight at me. I just stared at them frozen stiff, trying to make sense of what I'm seeing. I couldn't see a face at all. The eyes were just so bright nothing else stood out. That void or face around the eyes looked blacker than the night. I thought again, well, if this is a cat, how could a cat be big like a person? And why would a cat stand up to stare in my bedroom? I got off the bed and got on my knees to get a closer look at this so-called cat when at this very moment, this faceless pair of glowing white eyes begins to slowly and steadily tilt to the side, very similar to Michael Myers in Halloween, eyes still locked on me, not blinking once. The feeling of dread and fear shot through my body. Completely terrified, I burst into tears immediately and booked it down the hallway, through the living room and up the stairs to tell my mom. Although I was going as fast as I could, it felt like it took forever. When I got to my mom, I was so upset I couldn't get any words out. Tears were streaming down my face, and my mom was becoming seriously concerned at this point. She was able to calm me down just enough for me to get out the words there. There is white eyes looking at me through my window, on the bottom stutter crying hard. Are you sure? My mom asked. I cry out, yes. She didn't even go down to look. She just called the police. I don't remember the time it took for them to arrive or what they said, because I finally fell asleep in my mom's bed. I do remember faintly waking up to a knock on the door and my mom going to open it. The cop speaks to her and I hear her say, okay, thank you, good night, and she shuts the door. Did they find it, Mommy? I asked, half asleep. No, honey. He said they couldn't find anyone, my mom told me softly. It's okay now, just try to go back to sleep. It's safe to say that the next day, my whole window was covered. Years fast forward and I'm in middle school now. Every now and then I would think about that night. Sometimes I wondered if that moment was real, if those eyes were really there, those unforgettable white eyes. One day a random thought came up and I asked my mom if she remembered that night. She tells me yes, of course. Why? I don't know. Just wondering, I guess I said. Then my mom proceeds to say, well, I never told you this, but when the deputy came out that night, he told me they made it a priority to get out to our house as soon as they could, because not very long before I called 911, they received another call from someone else reporting that someone was looking in their window, in our same neighborhood. Hearing that sent chills down my spine, and to this day I wonder who or What was looking at me that night? Story number 2, a cough saved my life. Okay, my name is Jason. This is what happened when I was about 16 years old. I'm 27 now, and what happened that day would change everything. I live in West Virginia, where there are mountains all around, so I grew up in the woods, hunting, camping, and riding ATVs. One day, me and 2 of my friends, Brian and Jesse, went out on our ATVs to find a place to camp for the weekend. This was on a Thursday, and we wanted to find a place to camp on Saturday. We went pretty far into the woods to try and find the best spot we could, because we were bringing our girlfriends camping with us. So we got probably 5 or 6 miles back in the woods and found this little lake. And we all knew we found it. We got off and checked everything out to make sure it wasn't private property or anything, but there were no signs. And there wasn't a house around for miles. "This is it," Jesse said, and we all agreed. It was perfect. So we all got back on our 4-wheelers and headed back, knowing that Saturday was going to be a night to remember. But what we didn't know was it would be the worst night of our lives. So we get back the next day, we get all our gear loaded up, fishing poles, tents, sleeping bags. We made sure we had everything we needed to make it a fun night, including 3 bottles of Mad Dog and a 30-pack of Bud Light in a cooler. We were ready. We all met up at about 11 o'clock Saturday morning and headed out to our perfect camping spot. When we got there, it was great. We put the tents up, got firewood, and set everything up. The girls loved it too, except Brian's girlfriend, we'll call her Kat. She said she felt uneasy, but we just figured it was because she had never been camping before. So we started fishing and swimming and drinking, just doing everything teenagers do. But Kat just kept looking around and wouldn't join us at all. She just sat by the lake. Finally, it started to get dark, so we started a fire and made some hot dogs, and you just sat around it talking, telling stories about everything you do when you camp. It was about 11:30 when Jesse's girl Sam says she's going to go pee and Kat goes with her. They're gone maybe 4 minutes when they came running back saying Kat saw something behind a tree watching them. I grabbed my 9mm Smith & Wesson that I brought, and me and Jesse went to check it out. We didn't find anything, so we thought the scary campfire stories just freaked them out. We get back and tell them we didn't find anything, but Kat said she knows what she saw and wants to leave. We get her to chill out, and me having a gun kind of put her mind at ease. After about 30 to 45 minutes, we all were ready to lay down and spend alone time with our significant others, and no one was even thinking about what Kat saw anymore. I wish we would have left, because about an hour went and my girl Lindsay fell asleep, but I was just laying there listening to the sounds of the woods when I started to hear footsteps. At first I thought it was one of the others, but then I could tell whoever was walking was trying to do it quietly. The footsteps stopped at my tent door. I started to freak inside, but didn't make a sound. They stood there for at least 3 minutes. Then I saw the zipper start to slowly unzip. I started to grab my gun when I realized I left it in my bag by the campfire. So stupid, I thought. So the zipper moved about 6 inches slowly when Lindsay coughed, and it stopped. She was still asleep, and she didn't know someone or something was trying to sneak in our tent. I heard nothing for about 5 minutes. Then I heard footsteps again, but sneaking away from my tent. I couldn't move. I was terrified. All I could do was stay quiet and hope it didn't come back. 30 minutes passed when all of a sudden, the most crazy, evil-sounding scream I've ever heard came from the next tent over. It came from Brian and Kat's tent, and they started screaming, "No, please, no!" Jumped up, running out of the tent, and Lindsay was awake now, and I ran right to my bag for my gun. with Lindsay right beside me, terrified, not knowing what was going on. I grabbed it out and looked inside their tent, and what I seen still haunts my dreams to this day. The pale white, long arms with long claws at the end of its long fingers. It was like a humanoid type thing just taking chunks out of Brian, biting him. I fire and it looks up and its yellow eyes looked into my soul. I was shaking as it started galloping towards us. Lindsay started screaming. I fire again and it took off into the woods screaming the god-awful scream. We ran up to their tent and Jesse and Sam seen it all happening too, so we all ran to Brian and Kat. But it was too late. They were both tore up. You couldn't even tell who it was anymore. The girls were crying and Jesse puked, and I felt like I was in a nightmare. I had lime tunnel vision. I was scanning the woods, hoping whatever that was didn't come back. Jesse and the girls were all huddled up to me as we made our way to the ATVs. I was looking towards the woods the whole time with the gun pointed towards the way that thing ran off. We get to the ATVs and I realize the keys are in the tent in my pants pocket. I'm in my boxers. About that time we hear that thing scream again. I tell them to wait there. I gotta go back and get the keys. I didn't have a voice as much as I didn't want to go. I run as fast as I can to the tent, grab the keys, and turn to run back. And there it comes out of the woods, running right at me. I raise the gun and start firing. I hit it because it yelled and screamed and turned and ran back to the woods again. I ran back to the ATV and we rode out of there so fast. I'm surprised we didn't wreck and kill ourselves. We went right to the cops and told them everything that happened. Then they went to where we all were and came back after what seemed like forever, then took us back there with them. By this time it was light out. We got back there and everything was destroyed. The tents were ripped up and stuff was thrown everywhere. They took me up to Brian's tent and there was blood everywhere, but no bodies. The cop says, "Where are they?" I said, "I don't know. They were here when we left. That thing must have taken them." Then they start saying it looks like a bear did this, and trying to say we were drunk and must have been mistaken about what we saw. I know what I saw, and whatever that was, it wasn't even close to looking like a bear. It's been over 10 years later, and Brian and Kat's bodies have never been found. It was written up as a black bear attack. I never talked about it to anyone. Jesse and Sam got married and moved to Florida. Lindsay moved too, but we broke up not long after that, so I don't even know where. What still gets me is whatever that was, it was at our tent first. But Lindsay coughed and it went to Brian and Kat's tent. I don't know why, but a cough saved my life.